Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you are doing well, and it's time for a tier list of nuts. I have a passion for nuts. I am just a big fan of nuts, and I thought it would be good to come on here and just give you guys a tier list of what I think are the best, most desirable, and just generally dankest nuts out there. Let's go. All right, let's kick it off here with a nut that many of you guys are familiar with. It's the hazelnut over here. This is a hazelnut. These are quite good, nice chew. Good with chocolate as well. The hazelnut pairs and mixes with a lot of things, and it has some decent nutritional content as well. I'd say it's like a solid B nut. It's like a solid B nut. Following from here, we have the Colanut. The Colanut. These things look really fucking weird. I don't know anybody who eats them. There's probably some people who eat them, but like, I don't know what this is, or like, this is totally alien to me. It looks like dried mushrooms. I as much as I love nuts, I wonder if I would even would I even eat these if somebody threw these nuts in my face. I would probably not eat these nuts. So honestly, I'm just gonna have to take this nut and throw it over in E. Just like why does this nut even exist? Even all right. Next is the macadamia nut. Macadamia nut. Macadamia nuts are fine. You know, they're good salted. They're good in mixed nut packages, and there's a decent amount of like, you know, culinary applications for the macadamia nut. You know, I wouldn't eat too many macadamia nuts solo or anything, but again, it's like a solid B, good all-arounder type nut. Then shout out to sunflower seeds. Now, I will say I was debating putting the sunflower seed on here because there's a lot of seedophobia in the nut community. There's not really enough seed inclusion, in my opinion, even though seeds, a lot of seeds are nuts, a lot of nuts are seeds, a lot of nuts are legumes. There's a lot of crossover between these worlds. Like, what's with all the seed discrimination? You know, when I talk about nuts, like, people really get like passionate about seeds being separate. Now, sunflower seeds, I mean, good taste, fun to eat, can also be made into like sunflower seed like butter, which is a cool peanut alternative for those who are allergic to that and other nut butters. So, you know, I mean, cool seed / nut. Then from here, we got the peanut. We have the peanut. So good, so amazing, total classic. Edible. They're fun to eat salty. They're fun to eat with shells on them, and you open them up. They're fun to eat worked into various dishes from different places all around the world. You know, can be ground into peanut butter too. There's so many applications for the peanut, and you know, the peanut can even be used for stuff that's not even food. I mean, you know, there are the allergy issues and everything, but it's not the peanut's fault that we show weakness in the face of its greatness. I think if peanuts are anything, they're proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Granted, we're not allergic to them. I'm putting them in the S tier. Peanuts rule. We have chestnuts. Chestnuts are dank. I mean, I think the exposure and familiarity that people have with chestnuts is mostly based around just holidays, Christmas, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, that sort of thing. I think most people are familiar with it in that context. But the chestnuts are not just like a nut that people put, or someone like put in a song for fun. Like, it's actually a really dank fucking nut. You know, you roast these things, the shell snaps off and is almost like, you know, kind of thin and waxy in a way, and the nut meat inside is like deliciously sweet, and apparently like the nutritional content of this thing is like really amazing too. But yeah, it's like one of the few nuts that, like, in my opinion, you don't really got to season them or nothing. They're super sweet. They're super tasty. Depending on how you've roasted them, they're a little chewy too. Chestnuts, in my opinion, delicious. And even though they're not the most like widely applicable nut, I would easily throw this nut, just based on my own tastes and experience, in the S tier. It's a god tier nut, even if most people don't really appreciate it. Following from there is the walnut. Walnut, you know, walnut, not my favorite tasting nut. not my favorite tasting nut, but I will say the texture of the walnut is incredible. And also, it looks like a brain, which is also pretty epic. And there's a very wide array of like culinary applications for the walnut too. Good nutritional content as well. So even if I do think they have a slightly bitter taste sometimes, which would lead me to not eat them casually per se, I do still find myself consuming quite a few walnuts a month because of they could just be worked so easily into other things, smoothies and other dishes, that sort of stuff. So hell yeah, to the walnut. I think it's a good A tier nut. From there we have the cashew. The cashew. Now this nut is very rich, very tasty, amazing salted and spiced a number of different ways. They grow really weird on these apples that they hang off of the bottom of, and they sort of look like, like a wang on the apple. They look like the apple's ding dong. And it's pretty amazing. You have to think of like, to get a single cashew, they have to get a whole like fruit that the cashew grows off of, and then you eat the cashew from there. So it's like if you buy a whole tub of cashews, like every single one of those cashews used to be attached to a fruit. And personally, I've never eaten that fruit in my life. I mean, not that I wouldn't want to. I'm actually kind of interested to see how that fruit tastes. Like, does it taste even more epic than the cashew itself? I mean, I imagine if it did, they'd be selling that too. But I imagine this is a part of the reason why the cashew is one of the more expensive nuts out there, especially if you're buying like the whole fancy cashews and shit. Cashews are so good, they sell them to people broken, and people will buy them. You can't go to the store and like buy broken peanuts, buy like a tub of broken peanuts, or there's not like a tub that says fancy whole peanuts. You're like, if the peanuts are like broken or whole, I don't really give a shit. They're just peanuts. But yeah, for a few dollars less, they'll sell you broken cashews, like cashews halves and pieces. That's how good they are. They'll sell them to you broken, and people buy them and eat them anyway. I've certainly bought quite a few things of cashews that are broken into pieces, because I don't really give a fuck if they're broken into pieces. It still tastes good to me. Cashews, delicious, wonderful seasoned, wonderful in mixed nuts, used in a number of different culinary fashions and contexts as well. You can make cashew milk. I personally will grind down cashews and use that as like a base for curry too. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could cook, eat, and apply cashews, and on top of that, they're just delicious too. I think they're a good like S tier nut. S tier nut. It's a snut. Moving on from there, we have Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts. They're big. They're clunky. They're funny to look at. They have a hard, sort of like a sort of a demeanor about them. They really chew. You can really crunch these babies. I think they're quite fun to eat. Do I think they're like the best tasting nut? I don't think they really have a strong flavor profile, but I'm sure, with any other nut of this density, they could be applied in a number of different, culinary contexts. I think it's a solid B nut. It's a good nut that, you eat it if it's there, you don't really mind it, but you don't necessarily go out of your way just to eat a whole bag of Brazil nuts necessarily. All right, next is the cocoa nut, which, yes, is a nut and is also like a fruit. This is a dank nut. It's an epic nut. It's a rare, crossover type nut, which I love coconut. Coconut is delicious on its own. You get coconut water too. Coconuts are super nutritious. Coconuts can be used in a wide variety of cooking contexts. And you also have like coconut chocolate bars and that sort of thing. Like coconut's just like far and away a very amazing nut that I think you get more out of coconut the more creative you get with it. If you're a really creative person, you get a lot out of a coconut. If you're an uncreative person and you're just like, I just want something to put in my mouth and chew, you have no fucking clue what to do with the coconut. The coconut is beyond you. The coconut's too deep for you. The coconut requires a profound cerebral mind to consume, appreciate it, and cook with it. Your average dum-dum that's just like, unshelled pistachio, put it in my mouth. The coconut is just like so complex. It's beyond the mental capacity of that individual. It's a really deep nut. And I would easily put it in the A tier. There are some convenience factors that I think the coconut is lacking. But speaking in terms of everything we can do with the coconut, I think it speaks volumes and makes it a really great A-tier nut. Next, we have pistachios. Pistachios, which I just mentioned and dissed a little bit, but I don't mean to diss the pistachio, the humble pistachio, because they are quite fun. They are quite delicious. They are quite good to eat. You have pistachios salty straight out of the shell, delicious. Pistachio ice cream. I mean, there are a lot of different applications and contexts for the pistachio. I don't think it's the best tasting nut in the world, but I think it is a really solid, great nut to eat, one that you always want around. You want it in your regular nut rotation. I would easily put it in the A. Following through from there, we have acorns, which are also nuts. Those are going in the F tier. Only squirrels eat that shit. Who gives a fuck? All right, from there, we have almonds. Almonds, also a very good nut. Almonds are a dank nut, can also be used in a wide variety of contexts. I mostly consume almonds in the form of almond milk. Almond milk is wonderful, delicious, and one of the most glorious things to ever, grace the vegan community and humanity in general. But that being said, though, I don't really like eating almonds too much. I think they chew quite aggressively. They're really chewy. They're really tough. They're really hard. I love my teeth, and not that I've heard too much about almonds destroying your teeth or anything, but I just want to be gentle on them. I want to be lovely to my teeth, and I feel like almonds are just a little bit abusive. It's like the broken glass of the nut community, in my view. I would put the almond nut in the C category. Not the C category, the B category, because again, I love cooking with almonds. I love almond flavor. I love almond milk. I love working with almonds outside of the just take nut, put in mouth, chew capacity. And I think it works really well outside of that capacity in the same way that the coconut does. But you can also eat them too. And, they're somewhat versatile in that way. I know there are people out there who enjoy, eating almonds more than I do. And that's fine. And that's fine. Maybe you think I'm ranking it a little low. Maybe I might even take Brazil nuts, put them in C. I'm going to put them in C. I really am. I'm going to put them in C. And I'm going to make room for the humble almond. Next, it's pine nuts. We have pine nuts. In my opinion, basically fuck a pine nut. I mean, you could use them in a few different places and a few different dishes, and they're pretty good, but I don't know. I'm not really sitting there chewing on pine nuts. I'm just going to put them in D and just leave it at that. I mean, again, pine nuts, whatever. Then we have from here pecans. Pecans, tomatoes, however you want to say it, I suppose. Pecans, don't like a pecan. Pecan flavor, not that great to me. I mean, you could make them in a pie, but I don't even like pie. I think they're just boring, unseasoned, boring seasoned. I don't really like chewing on them either. And I just find them really aesthetically unappealing too. Just not really into a pecan too much. I'm just going to put them in the D category because I can, and this is my list. Finally, cacao. Yes, cacao. The cacao nut. It is a nut. And this is where we get the delicious chocolate flavor from. Cacao is the root of one of the most sought after candies, desserts, flavor profiles in the world, chocolate. I mean, how could it not be up here? Imagine a world without chocolate, I could wake up tomorrow and imagine a world without, I guess, pine nuts. I could wake up tomorrow and, think of world sans pine nut. Okay. Wake up tomorrow and think of a world sans chocolate. Think of a world sans cacao. That's a fucked up world. So I would easily put this in the S tier. I know maybe my S tier is a little packed up here, but there's a lot of S tier nuts. Maybe I'll even take, I could see someone taking the chestnuts down a peg because maybe they're not as relevant to the meta, but they're relevant to my meta. So fuck it. I'm putting them in the S tier. And that's going to be it. That is my nut tier list, everybody. That's my nut tier list. These are my favorite nuts, my tier of nuts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think are the best nuts. Are you allergic to nuts? If you are you allergic to this video? Whether you are or not, I hope you stay safe and enjoy seeds or other things that you can, maybe even an acorn, who the hell knows. But yeah, I'm going to leave this at this. Just debate amongst yourselves in the comments and let me know, your nut-centric thoughts, feelings, and ideas. You're the best. Love ya. Anthony Fantano, nuts forever.